as pediatricians, this is a social justice issue. How can I be okay with myself that I'm buying organic sushi for my kids and some kid is eating cardboard? They might as well be eating cardboard in public school.
Right.
It's still not acceptable. So, but this is an opportunity for every mom to step in and create a school lunch committee.
Yes.
Change the culture of school lunch at your school. And until that happens, send your kid with school lunch. If you can do that, if you can be that mom or dad, hello, to send the school lunch, send an extra lunch. Because some kids are going to school without any lunch. And tell your child, if you see someone who doesn't have anything to eat, share your food.
Welcome to Demystifying PANS and PANDAS, the podcast where we uncover the mysteries, breakthroughs, and hope behind these life-altering conditions. I'm Dr. Nancy O'Hara, a board-certified pediatrician, educator, and advocate with over 3 decades of experience helping children and families navigate the challenges of neurodevelopmental and neuropsychiatric conditions, especially PANS and PANDAS. These disorders can feel overwhelming, but here we'll break down the science, explore transformative treatments, and share stories of resilience and recovery. If you've ever wondered what's possible for your child or how to find answers, this is the place to start. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Demystifying PANS PANDAS podcast, and I am really thrilled to welcome a colleague and friend of mine, Dr. Michelle Perro. Michelle is an MD and a doctor of homeopathy and a seasoned clinician with more than 40 years of experience in pediatrics, integrative medicine, and she really is dedicated to treating children and families. She's had many iterations of her career from Yale to Mount Sinai to Bellevue, NYU, Director of Pediatric Emergency Medicine, UCSF, on and on and on. But really for the last couple of decades, she's really championed the integrative approaches to health and really focusing on the impact of GMO foods, pesticides on our children's well-being. She lectures all over the place. We have lectured many times together. She co-authored the acclaimed book, What's Making Our Children Sick, and has another book that will be coming out, Making Our Children Well. She's the CEO and co-founder of GMOscience.org, which promotes food as medicine and regenerative health education. She hosts another podcast, which I highly recommend, The New MDs, has lots of parenting resources, and she's just a gem. So, Michelle, I so appreciate you being here.
Nancy, thank you for that introduction, and your intro made me feel like, oh, I've been at this a while. So so happy to be here with you and share the tidbits we've picked up along the way.
Yeah. So just start with how you got started really in the homeopathic, integrative, the health of our children.
Certainly. I'm from New York. I was an academic, pediatric emergency physician working at Oakland Children's at the time. UCSF took it over later. And I had a son 31 years ago who had some health challenges especially, the kid of a pediatrician. Just watch out,
Yeah.
We get it. Parents, we get it too. You're not alone. And my son's challenges were tough. And long story short, I had a serendipitous encounter with a homeopath at a practice, an MD homeopath who I later worked with, Dr. Ikenze. I can't say enough wonderful things about her. She told me to give my son a remedy, a homeopathic remedy. I had never heard of the word homeopathy. I felt like such a troglodyte. Like, what? What am I giving? And my son was better in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Happened again, better in 5 minutes. And I thought, I literally exploded because, as you can see, I'm a bit passionate about what I do. And I said, are you kidding me? I may have had a few adjectives before, are you kidding? And I went back immediately and studied homeopathy. Became a homeopath, still in the ER, mind you.
Wow.
Taking a couple hits for that, eye rolls, jokes, but I was still following, the regular mainstream curriculum. And then I did pivot over into homeopathy out of the ER. I just had to. Literally, I couldn't tolerate mainstream principles any longer, especially when I had all these little cheap, affordable sugar pills that I could give kids. But then one of the parents in the practice, I was working in Dr. Ikenze's practice, said, Michelle, we need a pediatrician to be on our board to stop the spray against this light brown apple moth that's going to occur along the entire coast of California, and you've got to do it. I said, oh, no, I can't. I said, I'm in practice. I have young kids. I'm a soccer mom, room mom, PTA chair. I was like a school employee. And you know what I did, Nancy?
You did it.
I did it. And so then these gals did all the heavy lifting. They just used my name. I'm going to be honest. And I just went and had lunch with them because they had great organic food all the time. These moms made the meals. And then one of the moms, Lisa, said, Michelle, what do you think of GMOs and pesticides? Have you read Jeffrey Smith's book? And I said, who? GMO what? And she gave me Seeds of Deception. Jeffrey's a good friend of mine. I'm working on a joint paper with him literally on the other screen. I love Jeffrey. Read his book. And then I flipped because a couple years prior, I started to see an uptick in autism, autistic spectrum disorder, which I hate that word, and gut disorders. It was like every other kid. And I was running an integrative urgent care in my small town at that time.
Wow.
I kind of started doing that. Every kid had a gut disorder. They had constipation, bloating, reflux. Every kid had eczema. And whoever didn't have that had some type of spectrum equality. It wasn't always hardcore spectrum. I was seeing Asperger bits and little bits of social maladjustments and bits of kind of OCD behavior, not the full-blown picture. This was about 2000, Nancy. And I'm calling to my other pediatricians in our community. I say, hey, what do you guys think of this? You know, are we all going crazy? My gosh. And there's like, you're getting better at diagnosis. It's like, no, I'm not. I'm like, no, I'm really not. My grandmother could diagnose these kids. It's really not that subtle, people.
Right.
You know, when a kid's doing this, Nancy, like in your office, not subtle. When they're lining up toys in perfect lines and won't communicate with you, not subtle. Not pooping for 2 weeks, not subtle. And so I literally lost my mind. I got it back. I found it. And then I just pivoted into environmental health, focused on foods, GMOs, pesticides, mostly on GMOs. But I continually keep expanding and networking for other environmental toxicants. I try to use the right word, not toxins. Those are organic. Toxicants are inorganic. And really trying to teach parents how to regain their children's terrain and get them back on their tracks. That's where I am now. And fighting the fake food fantasy that we've all been enveloped in.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, because I've heard you use that phrase, fake food. What is it? I mean, I know, but tell everybody what it is.
So GMOs are real foods, but I call them food-like industrialized products because they're engineered to have certain traits. Like one of the traits GMOs have is that when you spray Roundup, which is a glyphosate-based herbicide, the crop doesn't die, but the weeds around it die. So they're engineered. But so that was the original introduction in 1996 to 98. Since that time, we have GMOs 2.0, and we are editing everything from plants to make vaccines, to animals to grow horns, to yeast to produce every type of supplement. We even have yeast to produce vaccines. So we've taken this, and it's completely unregulated. Any high school kid with $169 stealing mom or dad's credit card can buy a kit on Amazon and genetically engineer microbes in their garage and do God knows what with them. And you say, well, Michelle, what's the problem with these genetically modified organisms? Because let's start with the food when we talk about fake food. The problem is, which has not been studied, is that these now genetically new microbes, which have new traits, can swap plasmids, which are little bits of DNA, with the microbes in our gut, because we are mostly microbial, maybe 10 to 1 microbial to human. We exist of a large array of microbes that keep us as unique as we are, and they are having a little bacterial sex party. Hopefully, parent approval. Hopefully they're using condoms. Okay, I digress. No bad jokes. Oh my God, Nancy, so sorry.
It's okay. I love it. I love it. And our listeners do too. Don't worry about it.
So, okay, vacuum or 101. So they're swapping. And when they swap these plasmids, they're creating new microbes. We don't know what those microbes are. Their health ramifications. We exist because of what our microbes produce. vitamins, B12, neurotransmitters, GABA, the calming neurotransmitter, first line against protection for detoxification, immune function. Those microbes talk to the baby's thymus, telling them to help develop the innate arm of the immune system. So we are our microbes. Love your bugs. So that was the first funky fake food to hit us, and it's gotten much worse since.
Yep. Absolutely. And talk a little bit, because this is Demystifying PANS, PANDAS, and most of our families and practitioners that are listening are dealing with children with autoimmunity. How is this food that they're consuming linked to all the autoimmune disease we're seeing?
Right. So now we know that children are experiencing a tsunami of autoimmune diseases. PANS, PANDAS, basal ganglion encephalitis, call it what it is. I think autistic spectrum is a form of autoimmunity. Asthma is now considered non-immune disease. Juvenile idiopathic arthritis, up. Diabetes type 1, it's gone up like over the past 30 years, 3 to 4%. Celiac, 1 in 100. Inflammatory bowel disease, it's not so common, maybe 1 in 200, but not benign. So essentially every autoimmune condition has gone up in children. We have to ask what has changed. So if we look, so that's the layout. Now we know we've introduced these fake foods, and I talk about, well, I'd mentioned GMOs. That's a fake food in essence. They also now have introduced 3D printed meat. I gave a talk a couple of weeks ago. There are over 60 companies making, 3D printed meat. Everything from eel meat to bush meat to sushi, using a 3D printer, either with stem cells from an animal like a cow or on an agar plate, using a bioreactor and adding a solution to create the broth to make this 3D printed meat, which they don't have to label. And also, in the wisdom of Mr. Gates, is supporting 2 gals out of Georgia making biomilk with a Q, which is I can't get over this one. This one really gets me right here. It's a breast milk substitute made from a mammary cell, epithelial cell, in a lab to simulate breast milk. Again, it's a lab product. Bill Gates just gave another $23 million to 2 gals who had trouble breastfeeding, and they feel that this will be better than the toxic formula that I've been studying of late. But there's all kinds of problems with this lab-derived breast milk, as well as 23 million could have really it covered a lot of lactation support for moms. Just saying, Mr. Gates. Anyway, I digress there. We've got that going on, and so and also, as if that's not bad enough, this crickets are not fake food, but we're also being introduced to foods that humans should not be eating, like crickets. And that's been a big push for kids to be eating cricket powder, and cricket is protein, and reducing our reliance on cows that are passing gas, which is another fantasy. And so I've been fighting against this cricket thing because it's an E code on labels, parents. By the way, if you see an E code that may be crickets have parasites. And of 300 insects that were studied, about 30% of them have parasites that are pathological to humans. Now, my chickens, I have 5, have chitinase, so they can break down that little cricket for me. I don't have chitinase. Right. So they can create abdominal issues, they can create allergies, and parasites. And so they're kind of changing our food, not quite a fake food, but there has been an overhaul to these ultra-processed foods that we shouldn't be eating. And all these foods have an element of genetic modification with their associated pesticide, which is usually, not always, a glyphosate-based herbicide, or that's cousin glufosinate, which also increases ammonia production. It inhibits glutamine synthetase and increases ammonia. But anyway, none of it is good. Now,
I find it fascinating, and I had no idea about the crickets. I've learned something.
Okay. Don't eat the crickets. So there are some cultures in the world that their intestines are designed to handle those crickets. Fair enough. We got to be careful here, because I always tell people, eat your ethnic lines.
Right.
So If ethnically your families have been eating crickets for 300 years, well, that might be just fine for you, for your genetics and epigenetics. Now, so glyphosate is in everything. If it's not organic, and even organic is 5 to 9% contaminated with glyphosate, right? So the main ingredient, Roundup, everybody knows that, who's heard me speak. So glyphosate is an antibiotic. Monsanto Bayer, 2003, 2010. It's a patent. I know that patent by heart. It's an excellent antibiotic. Excellent. It was designed to wipe out protozoa, malaria, get strep, staph. Beautiful. Wow. But it also gets bifidobacteria, babies need bifido, lactobacillus, and it promotes Clostridia, autism, Clostridia, a little bit. Certain types are good. Too much is not good. And even salmonella. But what glyphosate also does, it takes out an important microbe in our gut called, this is my theory now, called B. fragilis, Bacteroides fragilis. So it's one of my theories. Now, Bacteroides fragilis provides the ecosystem where vitamin D works.
Right.
Vitamin D needs B. fragilis. They work in collaboration. B. fragilis can cause kind of stabilization of a regulatory cell that lowers the risk of autoimmunity, certain cells called Treg cells.
Right.
Now, vitamin D needs that B. fragilis. Now, glyphosate also impairs the liver detox pathway called the cytochrome P450 pathway in your liver. Now, vitamin D needs that pathway to activate. So glyphosate impairs there. Glyphosate knocks off its buddy, B. fragilis. So vitamin D, even if you're taking enough, may not be activated, even if you have a kid taking vitamin D, a kid laying out in the sun, because of glyphosate. Now, we know that low vitamin D levels are associated with autoimmunity.
Yep.
Every single autoimmune disease, I found tons of literature on the risk of autoimmunity from low vitamin D status. So we have children. When I check children, their levels are suboptimal, to say the least. 11, 13. We want to see levels above 50.
Right.
I'd like to see 75. They're so low.
Right.
And you need functioning fat to absorb vitamin D, which is a fat-soluble vitamin hormone. And so through glyphosate, we have impaired the ability to utilize vitamin D. And vitamin D is needed to prevent autoimmunity. It's a key driver.
And we see it all the time. I mean, a minimum of 85% of the patients in our practice, and this we measured several years ago. We haven't measured it in the last couple of years, and I bet it's even higher than that. And these are not kids that have a level of 30 or 40, sort of that still suboptimal range. These are kids, as you said, less than 20. And all of my practice is autoimmune disease. So all of these kids, and it's not going up. And we talk again and again and again about our processed food diets, our non-organic diets really affecting this. And
you know what's interesting? I mean, I get back to basics with families, and I still see families on Zoom, and I have them take their pictures of their pantry for me on their phones, and I'm looking, and they said, I eat organic. I said, send me a picture of your fridge, your pantry, your liquor cabinet, your spice rack. I'd say people who think they're all organic are 50% organic. When I tell people go organic, I'm talking all in, like all. And they say, well, we can't afford it. I said, you need to cook. How often do you eat out? Oh, twice a week. What does that run your family? Have you eaten out lately? It's wicked expensive. Tell the restaurants in your area, if you're going to charge all that for a salad, the $25, make it organic. So eating out here, you're not getting away with a tab under $50 for like a salad and like an iced tea. I mean, maybe. So this is what's going on. 46% of American families' income is spent eating out. So people are doing it. Hopefully they're not doing the drive-thrus, please. Taco Bell is going to be all GMO. Don't even start me on McDonald's and, chicken nuggies and all what's little rat bits and all. I can't even go there. Not to mention the acrylamide and the French fries and the cottonseed oil In-N-Out burger. My kid said, Mom, In-N-Out's one of the healthy ones. I said, oh, it is? How about that cottonseed oil in their French fries? We're not supposed to eat cottonseed oil. No one's supposed to eat cottonseed oil. It's a byproduct of industry. Like, oh, let's use it to fry potatoes. Okay. So we have to go organic. And so when families who are struggling, if they send their kids to public school and they eat that public school lunch, 93.7% of tested school lunches had glyphosate in them, and 100% of them had toxic metals.
Wow.
100%. When I learned that, that's when I did the infant formula study, which I published last May, and I did it with Stephanie Seneff and Dr. Seneff and Zen Honeycutt from Moms Across America.
Yep.
We looked at 40 formulas, and all 40 had toxic metals. And you say, well, what's that got to do with autoimmunity, Michelle? Well, I'm going to tell you. So the aluminum in those metals were in the parts per million. The other metals were in the parts per billion. That's micrograms per gram. Parts per million. So if I had it all consistently, one goat formula from Australia, Cabrita, had 44,000 parts per billion of aluminum. Now, when you eat glyphosate, it's in breast milk. If mom's not eating organic, it's a synthetic amino acid. It easily crosses into breast milk. And there's glyphosate in formula. Also, if the baby's getting formula, glyphosate neutralizes a charge on aluminum. Kids are born with the leaky gut, or if they have any kind of autoimmunity, 90% of them have leaky gut, crosses over. Aluminum and glyphosate are buddies. Glyphosate can shuttle aluminum 6 different ways across the blood-brain barrier. Aluminum
is a neurotoxin.
The microglial cells, little immune cells in the brain. The brain gets turned on. Brain inflammation. And what does brain inflammation look like? It can look like autoimmunity, depends where it goes. It could look like behavioral changes. It could look like social withdrawal. It could look like sleep disruption. It can look like language impairments, receptive speech. Also, B. fragilis also improves receptive language, by the way. And it's being used as a therapeutic in autism. So we know this is important because we also know receptive speech is an indicator of IQ. So that's a very important thing, that B. fragilis. It keeps popping up, Bacteroides fragilis. When that aluminum and other metals, which Dr. Exley and others have found in autopsy brains, it's hard to get out.
Right.
And these one of the many triggers of the autoimmune tsunami of, encephalitis, PANDAS, autoimmunity, the whole gamut, probably Alzheimer's too.
Yep, absolutely. And you mentioned very briefly school lunches, and I know you're doing a tremendous amount to try to change the absolutely horribleness of our school lunches. Can you talk about your efforts in doing that and what people can do in their own communities to make that better?
Yes, please do it. So there has been an initiative that's been introduced now to get school lunches healthier, and it's been happening through Secretary Kennedy, HHS. And kudos to Moms Across America for spearheading the school lunch initiative, and I couldn't give them more praise for their work. And so there is a big push to reevaluate, get processed foods off the menu. We need cooked meals, organic regenerative meals in children's schools. So these efforts are underway. And I tell parents, if you have a child in public school, create a committee, get on a committee to see how you can change your own children's school lunch. Getting little ultra processed foods, which they can average 50 ingredients, they're nutritionally bereft, wrapped in plastic, and then nuked in the microwave. So the little plastic bits get in that little tray of food that kids don't want, where ketchup and apple juice are labeled as fruits. This needs an overhaul. In India, moms get paid like $1 a day, and every child in India receives lentils, dal, and rice in India, and they're getting home-cooked food every single day, and those moms get $1 a day. They're feeding India, home of 1 billion plus people. I don't have the exact number. I don't know how many children it must be. And these moms are in those schools making lentils. It's a health food. Now here in the U.S., it's got one of the highest amounts of glyphosate, legumes, wheat, and oats, because they use glyphosate as a crop desiccant. Right. But if they could do it in India, you mean to tell me we can't do it in the U.S.? Are you kidding?
Right.
I mean, people. So it is possible. And the reason why this is so important for so many children, they're eating the bulk of their food at school. 1, 2, or 3 meals a day. So for us as pediatricians, this is a social justice issue. How can I be okay with myself that I'm buying organic sushi for my kids and some kid is eating cardboard? They might as well be eating cardboard in public school.
Right.
It's not acceptable. So, but this is an opportunity for every mom to step in and create a school lunch committee.
Yes.
Change the culture of school lunch at your school. And until that happens, send your kid with school lunch. If you can do that, if you can be that mom or dad, hello, to send the school lunch, send an extra lunch. Because some kids are going to school without any lunch. And tell your child, if you see someone who doesn't have anything to eat, share your food. Yes. Assuming they don't have a dairy or, I got to be careful when I say that. The child does not have a dairy allergy or gluten or a nut sensitivity. Right. Other than that, right, to be mindful of children who are hungry, and maybe moms and dads, you could talk to their mom and dad and say, listen, if I have extra lunch, I'd be happy to share it.
Yeah. So good. And let me ask you, Michelle, I mean, yes, you and I want all of our families to be organic. We want them to do that as much as they possibly can. But the questions are going to come back. I can't do that right now for whatever reason. Are there 3 to 5 that you say absolutely? We know the Environmental Working Group has the Dirty Dozen, which is now 15, and it probably should be 50. But how would you answer that question, Michelle?
So I would say, if your kid does do dairy, that dairy has to be organic. If you do eat meat, and I do like meat for children, I do follow Weston A. Price for diets for children. I'm a fan. But if parents are vegetarian, I can go with that too. I respect cultural decisions, religious decisions, etc. I'd say eat less meat and make it organic, free range. Just buy less. Yeah. And if it's conventional meat, don't eat it because it's filled with antibiotics, hormones, mRNA vaccinations, and God knows what else. So don't eat that meat. There are certain fruits and vegetables. Berries are high in pesticides. So berries need to be organic. And honestly, plant your own. And you say, I live in an apartment. Are you kidding? You can get a window box and plant herbs. Cilantro, dill, rosemary grows like a weed. Parsley, easy to grow. And kids will eat what they grow themselves.
Such a great point, because I think there's so much to that. I mean, I talk to my families all the time about getting kids outside, playing in the dirt. And even if you can't, having that window box, as you said, you're in the middle of New York City, plant a couple of window boxes, plant it on a teeny tiny little porch, but get the kids involved and eat those things, even if it's just a spice, an herb that's still a plant. And getting that done with your kids can be just that little start. Just because you can't do, I guess my big point is, just because you can't do everything today doesn't mean you should do nothing. Make one good step.
And we talk about it all this time. It's overwhelming for parents. I know they're working. I know they're kids, and oh my God, they're running to appointments. I get it. So you have to find a way to make it work for you. Whatever you can do is better than doing nothing.
Right.
And the day where someone's going to do it for you is over. You need to do it yourself. Or in your community, your church, your school, your neighborhood, your neighbor, work together. If you grow cucumbers, let them grow the tomatoes and swap. You don't have to grow it all. So this idea of reopening a community garden together, there's a community garden not far from me in a town nearby where people can get a little box and all they have to do is maintain it themselves. And it's free. Yeah. So there are options. It's happening in New York City too.
Yeah.
These community gardens, they're popping up everywhere. And the reason we're back to this is because we know what's driving the mental health, and I hate that word, mental health and autoimmune issues in our children are dysbiosis. Dysbiosis, an imbalanced microbiome. Our children's microbiomes are not robust. They're homogeneous. They don't have any diversity, which and not enough nutrients, which creates immunological debility as well as lack of nutrient density. So they're starting off impaired. And when we just did a podcast on this, ADHD, dysbiosis, autism, dysbiosis, bipolar disease, dysbiosis, major depressive disorder, dysbiosis, schizophrenia, dysbiosis.
Yeah.
And and people say, when I was in school, 40, 50 years ago, we didn't have it. We weren't eating glyphosate and GMOs.
Right.
Even if I was from a poor family, but we still had better food, poor than what the kids are eating now.
Right.
It has changed in our lifetime, including nutrient density. If those kids don't have enough minerals, magnesium, zinc, copper, boron, selenium, which you need, by the way, to activate vitamin D, and glyphosate binds those minerals, by the way, and there's not enough of them, the kids can't run their brain function, and they're all going to be doing this.
Right. Right.
And so I say that mineral deficiency is probably as important as vitamin deficiency. Vitamins give it their color. Minerals give food their taste. If your food doesn't have taste and color, you've got no vitamins, no minerals, just saying. But those minerals are needed to activate a series of reactions, including the vitamin D activation, which are probably about 7 minerals.
Yeah.
And when we test children, when you go to your pediatrician and say, hey, can you please check my magnesium and zinc levels? I heard a podcast with Dr. Nancy O'Hara and I've got to check it. And they check plasma. Plasma will be normal. Your physician, your practitioner needs to check the red blood cell levels of magnesium or zinc. If those are low, chances are all the nutrients are low.
Yep. And you can test that just in a conventional lab. You don't need a specialty lab. You just need to ask for an RBC zinc and RBC magnesium. If your physician or your state, because the state of New Jersey is very bad, by the way, of doing RBC levels, and you get a plasma level, even a low normal is equivalent to a very low RBC zinc.
And yes, and so no zinc, that's 200 brain functions that are needed for zinc, not to mention your immune function. So if your kid has ADHD and is sick all the time, it might be a zinc deficiency. And if they're a picky eater, could be zinc deficiency. And so with just giving them some increased minerals, you can fix a lot of issues. I don't like just throwing single nutrients at children. I like to start with their food. And then if things don't correct with an organic, nutrient-dense, plant-enriched diet, I do add multivitamins with minerals. I do it a lot. Because kids can't seem to get enough. They're so low.
Right. But that doesn't mean the gummy from the local pharmacy multivitamin, because then we're just listing another, 20 ingredients, the first of which, usually the first 3 are some form of sugar and modified sugar. So, when we say a good multivitamin mineral, we're talking about a really high quality product and not one of those gummies.
So parents tell me, well, great, Dr. Perro, I have 3 kids and you want me to put them on this high quality multivitamin, which is super expensive and all my kids need it. And I say, hold on. Make bone broth soups, make a lot of bone broth soup, and which is cheap. With 1 chicken carcass, you could probably make 4 dinners out of it. 1 chicken, which will cost you about $8 if you buy an organic chicken. And I said, give them multivitamins twice a week. It's not ideal. I'd like to see it daily, but twice a week is better than 0 per week. And maybe you can just do it then. And so this is how I can compensate. And if you can't eat meat, use the bones. They must be organic because your body will store toxic metals in bone, including cows, chickens, turkeys, lamb. So if you go to the butcher and ask them to give them the organic bones, you can make a delicious soup out of that, lots of veggies. And if you go to this farmer's market at the end of the day, they'll sell you the imperfects of organics at a low price.
Which are great for those soups. Yeah.
What do you care if the celery is not attractive? So you cut out the ugly part, throw it in your bone broth soup. You got to cook it. Chicken needs to cook for 12 hours. Beef has to cook for 24. It's got to be on the back burner. Someone should be home. Just don't let it. I use a crock pot myself. I'm really into cookware and I do a lot of I cook every day, Nancy. And I think I would do more cooking than when I did when my own kids were little. I would, if I knew now back
I
then.
know. But as I always say to our parents, you can't know what you don't know. So much of what our parents go through is PTSD over what I coulda, shoulda, woulda. That's not what we're trying to say. It's just about now making the next right step. And so we've talked about how we can help school lunches, how we can eat more organically, how we can do the window box or the community garden. And all of this are also vagal nerve strategies too. Remember, the dysbiosis in the gut is really negatively impacting our vagal nerve. And that is negatively impacting, the huge amount of anxiety, intrusive thoughts, tics, neuropsychiatric stuff we have in our kids. But
And so that's such a great point, because if parents can swing it, I recommend that all of the kids see a craniosacral osteopath who are trained in children and do a vagal reset, because they have these maneuvers. I try to learn them. I was like, oh, my brain can't handle this, but you can do these very simple maneuvers. In France, they have people that go around and do these quick maneuvers after birth and
yeah,
kind of reset the vagal.
there are several countries that do that. And we're one of the few that don't. I had an amazing craniosacral therapist when my son was little, and yeah, he would have a sinus infection. She would work on him and it would be gone. Not the 3 meds that my old partners recommended. I agree with you. It's a very powerful.
Me too. I learned about craniosacral here in California. I'm in Northern California with the homeopathy for my son and the work of a craniosacral therapist. God bless you. My son was refluxing. I found it on a dental visit, fixed the reflux, through craniosacral osteopathy by a DO. It was beautiful. And one more thing parents must consider doing is breastfeeding.
Oh.
I know breast is best. Everyone knows this. Do we know it? Do what you can. I cannot stand that we consider pregnancy and birth a disability, and moms go on disability. It's not a disability. We should be given, like European countries, at least 6 months off so you can nurse your babies. But please nurse as long as you can. There is nothing even close to breast milk. That breast milk is full of the rich microbes that help sets up your baby's immunity from early start. And moms, if you are pregnant please work on your own microbiome and change your own diet, because baby inherits your microbiome.
Absolutely.
Mom is the steward, grandma, great-grandma, the steward of immunological well-being.
Well, Michelle, I could talk to you for days, not just hours. I just want to keep going and going. But we both said at the beginning, we can't go too long because they'll, everybody will stop listening. But there's so many ways people can find you. Certainly the gmoscience.org, and your website is?
It's gmoscience.org. There's a contact me newsletter at the bottom. I read all the emails because I'm kind of like tight sphincter. I like to see what people are asking, and I try to answer all the questions. So if there's something that is amiss, you're like stressed over, email me and I'll do my best to get back to you quickly.
That's great. And any last words of hope, of resilience, of whatever you want to give our parents or practitioners that may be listening or watching?
100%. And I would say I'm an optimist. I sound like Dr. Doom and Gloom, but I am a total optimist. And I'd say we have a job as parents, and our job is to create holistic health, move away from farmer to farm, and to regain our children's terrain. And if we can embrace that 3-legged stool, your kids will be so much healthier. And moms, dads, please get the kids in the kitchen. Don't worry about the messy kitchen, and get them at an early age in food from the farm with the stem still on, and get your kids involved. It will pay off in the end.
Yeah. Such good words. And another 3-pronged, we talk about the 3 prongs of treating PANDAS. That's another 3-pronged approach I'm going to remember after today. So thank you. Really appreciate it. Great to see you, Michelle.
Likewise. Thanks, Nancy.
That's it for today's episode of Demystifying PANDAS. I hope you're walking away with insights, tools, and hope to help you and your child on this journey. If you found today's conversation valuable, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Share this podcast with anyone who might need it. It could be the lifeline they're searching for. And if you have a moment, leaving a review helps us reach even more families who deserve answers. Also, for more information, training, and community, check out our website, drohara.com, and join our annual membership. And remember, Every step forward, no matter how small, brings us closer to healing and understanding. Until next time, be present, be hopeful, and we look forward to seeing you next time on Demystifying PANS, PANDAS.